and welcome to the Weekly Artifact. I'm Justin, and this is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Alex.
We're two former creative writing majors searching for meaning in a sea of content. Every other week, we'll select one piece of content each, an article, a video, another podcast, that we found particularly interesting and discuss it. As always, our comments are our own and are not associated with any institution.
Podcast may contain explicit language. Viewer discretion is advised. Justin, what do you got today, buddy?
So my article this week is another podcast, actually, and also this is our longest artifact to date. It's by the podcast Struggle Session and is called Contrarian. Now, Struggles, just a little side note, they in the beginning of the episode, they referenced this figure of Jonathan Daniel Brown, who's actually no longer part of the show, and the show is better for him being off it. So luckily you get to experience it without him in this one because he's sick. Anyway, the episode is about being called a contrarian. So it's hosted. This episode is hosted by Leslie Lee III and Jack Allison, and they basically both describe how they've been called contrarians, although they don't view themselves being that way. But basically, when it comes to mostly their conversation centers around movies, so I'll sort of just speak to it in the language of movies as well, but they could really apply to any art. But when you're, basically when they express a negative opinion about a movie, and rather than people sort of engaging with their opinion, just writing it off to being contrarians, they have a lot of different points that they make about basically what's wrong with this knee-jerk reaction to just calling people who don't like something that you like a contrarian. So one of the points Jack Allison makes is that there is a consistency to things I like and don't like. I mean, one of the points that they make early on is basically that it's not that they're sort of reacting to, what popular opinion is, rather they're just stating their own opinion, which I tend to believe, but we can sort of return to that point later on. And Leslie III sort of makes the point that, him being African American comes from a different background than a lot of people who will criticize his opinion. It's thinking about what specific background people are coming from, and also just that, it doesn't really necessarily bring them any pleasure to just be in the minority opinion about these various properties. So that's sort of the background to it all. But I think really sort of the meat of the episode is about Jack Allison calls it this hegemony of thought that's developed on the internet, despite the fact that the internet's supposed to give voice to everyone and allow for a wide variety of thoughts. Instead, it seems that a lot of opinion seems to coalesce around one sort of corporate approved opinion. They also sort of speak to it as potentially being a generational gap thing. I mean, they sort of speculate a few reasons for it. One reason sort of this generational gap, where they sort of say, if you critiqued Britney Spears or NSYNC in the past, that was sort of, again, we can sort of get into this, but it's sort of acceptable to sort of critique pop stars, 10, 15 years ago. Whereas now, if you were to criticize Taylor Swift, Nicki Minaj, Katy Perry, Sam Smith, etc., sort of seen as being more contrarian. Basically, their point is that, when it comes, a lot of these movies tend to be movies from Disney or Sony or whatever, and that rather than, since these, are such large corporations with so much money, we shouldn't necessarily be giving them charitable critiques. We should be, if anything, more critical, since they have the resources to do a better job. And to sort of highlight their point, they go by Rotten Tomatoes scores, not necessarily because those are the most reliable, but because those have a certain amount of cultural relevance. So, for example, they point out that The Godfather Part 2 and Black Panther both have the same Rotten Tomatoes score. 2001: A Space Odyssey and Wonder Woman both have the same Rotten Tomatoes score. Doctor Strange and A Clockwork Orange have the same Rotten Tomatoes score, and also Doctor Strange has a higher Rotten Tomatoes score than John Carpenter's The Thing. And so basically, what they sort of conclude is that a lot of these movies that are getting sort of ranked as being in line with some of these more classic movies aren't going to really hold up over time, is what they predict at least. Leslie there makes a point about talking about like some of Anthony Fantano's music reviews and how he doesn't necessarily agree with them, but he can learn a lot from them. Where they sort of leave off is just kind of like reopening the door to being able to have conversations about some of these movies that don't just center around the corporate approved opinion that you must turn off your brain and enjoy the Disney movie. And if you critique it, you're just being a contrarian. So that was basically the podcast. Like I said, it is 50 minutes long, so that was just a brief overview of what they're talking about. But I definitely agree. I don't know about you, Alex, but I've definitely been sort of fallen under this label of contrarian as well. People have sort of applied that to me. And yeah, it's usually, I will have experience of walking out of a movie, and I'll just assume that other people maybe saw some of the same issues with it that I saw, and be very surprised when they sort of just uncritically enjoyed it, which is fine. But then when I try to sort of figure out what it was they liked about it, or why they didn't necessarily have an issue with some of the issues I have, the conversation they just don't want to even have that conversation, which I find to be probably the most enjoyable part of the movie in some cases, is being able to talk about it afterward. But I don't know if you have any similar experiences to that or not.
I don't know if I've ever been accused of being contrarian. I do have somewhat of a knee-jerk reaction to, like, not necessarily dislike, but to sort of, I don't know, like, I guess, but try to find, like, a flaw with something that everybody, like, sort of, like, inherently lauds, but just because I'm skeptical of sort of universal acclaim as, like, a practice. I remember, I don't know if you remember, and this might have to get cut, but do you remember in one of our creative writing classes, somebody opened that you're not cool just because you're being contrarian when you say you don't like the Beatles? Do you remember that?
I'll just say yes for now, because I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't totally remember it.
That pissed me off to no end. I hated that. That was such a bad take, and I don't like. That's what I don't like. That, and I think I don't know why. I mean, this came out. This was recorded last year, and I'm not sure why. But like, I think the number one pop star that is absolutely contrarian proof, more than even Taylor Swift, is Beyonce.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
And I think I remember also listening to the conversation, not being an active part of the conversations in classrooms about sort of the genius of Beyonce, just sort of like, well, it's not bad, but like really, like, that's sort of the thing. It's like, I don't shit on things, but like, I try to like, can we like bring it down a couple notches, Not well. The thing, it's not contrarian takes, but like, I mean, we've shit on Marvel before. We've shit on Disney. We've shit on the new Star Wars. Is like, we have had like criticisms of like the most popular media available, but again, that doesn't make you contrarian. But I don't think I've ever had that word thrown at me, so I think I've been immune to that thus far. But I also don't have a platform like Struggle Session, and I don't feel like I associate with as many people as you, just sort of broadly. So I think I've sort of sheltered myself away from that in some capacity.
Yeah, I think 2 points. So one, like you said, it won't even always be like the most negative opinion. Sometimes it's just even an opinion that's not the opinion you're supposed to have. And it's hard to even say. I don't even quite understand like how this happens. I think a lot of it has to do with sort of the conversation that we see happening around the movies based on what trailers get released and how people have reacted to other movies in the franchise or whatever. But it seems like before people even walk into the movie, they sort of know like what opinion you're supposed to have or something. But because sometimes it won't even always be like a movie I disliked. Sometimes I remember, I don't like most of the Marvel movies, but like I thought Thor Ragnarok was like kind of funny, and so I kind of, that's one of my ones I kind of prefer. And I remember I walked out of that one, and the person I was with, who pretty much likes all the Marvel movies, I was like, "Oh yeah, like I enjoyed that one." And then they were like surprised. They were like, "How did you enjoy that one? That one was bad." I was like, so again, it was kind of like I was put in this position of like being a contrarian somehow, even though I liked the movie. So I don't know, but yeah, no, but it's almost like you can't even discuss it. It's kind of just like, oh, you just liked it because it was bad, or you didn't like it because it was good or something.
Right.
And it becomes like a referendum on you rather than the movie. But I didn't think Thor Ragnarok was going to be good when I went into it. So I was like, so I'm always just kind of like surprised at what reactions people come out of the movies with, and it's, like I said, it's not always like a negative reaction, like you said. It could be sometimes it's just like a milk toast reaction. It could be like, oh, the movie was just okay. It could be the movie was good. It could be it was bad. If it's not like the opinion you're like supposed to have, it gets jettisoned out as not accepted or whatever. And yeah, a lot of it is I see related to this sort of just kind of like turn your brain off thing. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I do sort of understand why some people don't just want to go to the movies as like an escape, basically.
Yeah.
I guess it sort of like relates to, Martin Scorsese calling the Marvel movies like amusement park rides.
Yeah.
And I don't go to an amusement park ride to think about the experience of it. So if people are like treating the movie like this, I do get it. But I never, the thought to treat art as something just to passively absorb was not something that ever really crossed my mind. I'm not really sure if this switch did happen, like they sort of said. I kind of think it did because I do remember, like, even when I was like in elementary school, if you liked Star Wars, you're kind of considered a nerd, or at least it wasn't something that there was no, like, you wouldn't get together at lunch or something and all discuss Star Wars. It was just kind of like a niche thing. So I do think that flip switched at some point. I was trying to think of when and why. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the media consolidation and how Disney kind of like owns everything now. And also maybe just kind of like that we have social media where like you can sort of like discuss this stuff in real time. But I think too, maybe a lot of it has to do with like the Harry Potter movies and how it was kind of this kid's story that kind of extended on till the kids who liked it were adults. And now it's kind of like, even if something has just something for not really for thought, but just kind of like for something for kids to enjoy, we have to treat it as like this adult media in this weird kind of conflated way.
Yeah.
And also like the MCU kind of starts up right as Harry Potter's kind of winding down, so they
That's
kind of
true.
bleed into each other anyway.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, such a weird cultural moment that has stuck around way too long. The Harry Potters, and I'm so glad I'm so glad she's a TERF. I love that she's such a piece of shit in real life. Makes me so happy because fuck them. Because fuck all of them. Oh, God. Doesn't just do your heart good.
Yeah, that I don't know, that part is always strange to me. Like, J.K. Rowling has such bad political opinions, and how people can still kind of just uncritically enjoy Harry Potter and is
It's
strange.
insane. Like when people are like, yeah, well, fucking Cho Chang and fucking the one black kid, and just like literally like, what'd she say? Like there was one Jewish kid named like Robert Goldenstein or some fucking shit, and like the fucking bank goblins and shit. Like what the fuck? Like so funny, so bad. Hate that shit.
So do you think you have any movie take that's controversial or?
My most controversial movie take. Fuck, let me think. I really, really Danny McBride is super funny to me, and I really like Land of the Lost, but I know they're bad movies, so it's not like I'm like I undercut it. Like I don't think it's like a masterwork. Oh, I don't like no. I used to hate Citizen Kane, but I watched it again. It was okay. 2001: A Space Odyssey is well, no, you think that too though. You'd also think 2001: A Space Odyssey is like way too up its own ass.
Yeah, I have a few critiques of Space Odyssey. It's all right, but
yeah, I don't know. I just like I don't know. I feel like I'm actually still I'm pretty like lukewarm on Citizen Kane, and all to be fair, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know if that's contrarian or just like a old head thing, but like I don't know.
yeah, I haven't seen Citizen Kane.
Well, that's a pretty good contrarian take. I got it. Well, anybody that says Return of the Jedi is better than Empire Strikes Back is being contrarian. There's literally no founding. I hate that shit.
Are there people who say that?
After this new Star Wars came out, people have been like listing, and like a lot of people went like 4, 6, 5, and I was like, fuck off. I was like, I hate that shit. That's just
people
wrong.
put 4 in front of 5 too.
People also put 4 in front of 5, and I'm like, oh, I'm willing to let that go because
yeah,
it's
me
like
too. But
the first one, like But to say 465 is
Yeah,
the
I can't.
stupidest thing I've ever heard in my fucking life. I also think the prequels are probably okay. Like they might be like they're
Yeah,
like
I think
they're like low key decent.
people hate on the prequels way too much. They're not
They
as good as the originals, but they're better than the sequels, and
oh yeah.
they're like two. If you take out two and just look at what like two is bad, like you can't defend two. Two is probably the worst Star Wars movie they've made. But if you just look at one and three, they're fine. Like they're not great, but they work. They're fine.
Well, people got like way too hype on like shitting on them, and like I'm a big fan of like prequel memes and shit like that. But like people get like there's like if there's like no love there when you're doing that. Like you just like got like up your own ass like hating them. Like it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, I got one. The Grinch. Jim Carrey's The Grinch is god tier Christmas movie. I don't know why everybody hates that movie. The jokes are hilarious. He fucking killed it. He had to literally. This doesn't make it a good or a bad movie, but he literally went through CIA torture training to fucking go get to wear that costume. Because it was like 6 hours of makeup every day. But that movie's hilarious, and like, there's man, that movie just fucking kicks ass. I hate that people don't like that movie. That's my hottest take. That's right. Like I don't know why people don't like that movie. I don't know. That makes me mad. That's a great Christmas movie. That's just a good movie.
I think the animated one is better, but I don't
Okay,
think
that's fine. It's half an hour and it's tight as shit. I'm not gonna argue that the animated's better worse, but like fuck, I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
I think that one's fine though. I don't have any issue with that one.
All right, Justin, give me your contrarian hot take.
I like Spike Lee's Old Boy. I've never heard a critique of Spike Lee's Old Boy that wasn't just it's not as good as the original. Which okay, you can say it's not as good as the original, but like just look at the movie on its own terms. Is it good or not? I feel like it's good. Like I really enjoyed Old Boy. I don't know why. Yeah, I feel like people just are like have this unnatural hatred for it just because it's not the original. I don't understand that. Also, I think the Purge movies are good. I know one day we're going to actually talk about that.
We will, and you're wrong.
And the last one I'll share, I don't think Hot Fuzz is a good movie.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. It's not funny though, and it's supposed to be funny.
It's okay, but it's not funny. I like it. I like it.
Those are probably my three most controversial movie takes, other than just the general saying that the MCU sucks, but everyone there's like that one you can find enough people that believe that as well.
I feel like everybody knows that. They just don't want to like believe it. Anybody that like either you accept it or you don't, but everybody knows it, you know. I know that that's not actually true, but like it feels like it should be.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say also is that if you enjoyed this episode, Struggle Session, if you listen to it, you should also listen to their episode on Let People Enjoy Things. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme. I don't know if it's the opposite side of the same coin or how to necessarily describe it, but it goes hand in hand with this sort of idea of like you gotta turn your brain off and just enjoy things, which like the let people enjoy things meme kind of started off as like a good thing and then kind of got like weaponized to being used to like defend the stuff that doesn't need to be defended. So so if you enjoyed the episode of Struggle Session or our conversation of that, you should just subscribe to Struggle Session anyway, but let people enjoy things episode might be a good next one to check out. Alright, so that's all for my artifact. Alex, what do you got this week for your artifact?
So mine's an article, and I would argue mine's the longest article, or the longest artifact I've ever had, depending on how long it takes you to read. Justin, you ableist piece of shit. Either way, mine's an article from Bitch Media called "The Unbearable Whiteness of Leftist YouTube" by Maria Watanabe, and so it talks about, well, firstly, it sort of talks about like what leftist YouTube or LeftTube is, and then sort of how we got to such a aesthetically milquetoast peoples as like sort of the front runners, but we'll just sort of get into it. Starting off, the label of LeftTube was coined from the LeftTube subreddit. I mean, and the internet still has been able to agree on a universal definition for the term. But in the broadest sense, Marino writes, LeftTube can be described as a loose-knit community of YouTubers who create persuasive videos informed by left-leaning politics, usually focusing on feminist, anti-racist, anti-capitalist, queer politics, and, usually with a scripted video essay format, talking about films, TV clips, news footage, meme sketches, occasional music numbers, especially something like FilosophyTube. One of the person that they sort of talk about the most in front is somebody that we've talked about, haven't done an artifact of hers yet, but Natalie Wynn, or otherwise known as ContraPoints on LeftTube, is one of the most recognizable vloggers. Marina writes with features in The Atlantic and The New Yorker about her focus on de-radicalizing right online communities. There was a full Vice profile piece on her about that as well. And then she continues to write, while Wynn is arguably the most visible LeftTuber, she's not the only leftist YouTuber receiving a mainstream attention. Harry Bruce, known as H-Bomber Guy, made headlines when he hosted a 57-hour Donkey Kong 64 Twitch live stream in January that raised more than $300,000 for Mermaids, a British charity that supports trans and non-binary youth, and caught the attention of Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who called in briefly to express her support for the trans community. Other people she mentions as, being white left-tubers: Oliver Thorne of FilosophyTube, Stephen Bunnell of Destiny, and American Johnson for Non-Compete. And she writes, talk about the history of YouTube and sort of its political leanings or support. The site has historically struggled to regulate white supremacy, and so the mere existence of, LeftTube is a positive, as for years, self-identified alt-right and far-right creators have leveraged their YouTube channels to radicalize their youth. They're mostly white and male subscriber basis, because the fucking algorithm's bullshit on YouTube, and they don't give a shit as long as they're making money. Much of the the big shift she talks about, the good use, the best things about YouTube with LeftTube is that most of the understanding of systematic oppression, sure, it's still entrenched in academic elitism, making it inaccessible to the most marginalized communities. ContraPoints created a video that detailed her reasons for leaving academia and starting a YouTube channel, and Oliver Thorne of FilosophyTube originally started his channel to share his graduate training in philosophy with a more general audience. And similarly, media critic Lindsay Ellis, who has a master in fine arts in film and television, creates analytical video essays that incorporate a social justice lens, such as her Whole Plate series that explores feminist theory, queer theory, Marxist philosophy, and film studies through the lens of Michael Bay's Transformer franchise. And so, that's sort of a lot of the LeftTube, from what I've watched and what she writes about, is sort of this mixing of sort of high concept theory and analysis with, populist media to sort of make it accessible. And so but turning to the sort of broader point of the paper and the unbearable whiteness half of the essay that she writes, although LeftTube works towards a social good by strengthening its audience understanding of politics and social justice, coverage has been exclusively focused on white YouTubers, and people of color have been excluded from the narrative. In her June 2019 video, "Why is LeftTube So White?", YouTuber Cat Black, BLAQUE, whose insightful videos cover everything from dating as a trans woman to PewDiePie's rebranding of white nationalism, examines why leftist YouTubers of color haven't garnered the same level of visibility and success as their counterparts, although many of them have been creating videos for much longer. She writes, "It's really hurtful for me to understand that many white people will never actually be against racism unless it's a thing that white people tell them they should be against." And, obviously there was backlash to that. And she said, all caps in a Twitter thread, "This is not a video about my lack of success on YouTube. This is not a video about why I don't have as many subscribers. This is a video about how white people and really everyone are seen as authorities about experiences they do not have." And the author, references a academic paper from 1988 by Peggy McIntosh, White Privilege Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, which was written by a white person and studies anti-racism. And, this is still sort of the go-to academic paper on racism, as though, there isn't something better from somebody that, experiences it more firsthand, as opposed to somebody talking about the privilege of not experiencing it. Marina Watanabe talks, about how she as well left YouTube due to the, severe harassment, and just sort of give a quick number differential before we sort of talk about it more. She says many successful YouTubers supplement their income through Patreon, and the amount that patrons pledge ranges greatly, and a lot of people keep it private, but YouTubers like Wynn, Ellis, Bruce, and Thorne have thousands of patrons supporting them financially, ranging from more than 4,000 to nearly 10,000 patrons. In contrast, creators of color who make similar content have been creating YouTube videos for more than a decade, like Black and The One Janitor, and new creators like Angie Speaks have less than 1,000 Patreon patrons offering them financial support. So she just sort of closes with, the next time white YouTubers are held up as bastions of leftist thought and innovation, remember that before there was LeftTube, there were women of color on the site providing essential resources to a community that was largely hostile to us. Remember that we were here before the New York Times features and the Vice profiles and the New Yorker photo shoots. Remember that we were doing the work without the incentives and despite hundreds of thousands of voices telling us not to. So Justin, I'll just sort of get your first takes, first impressions, thoughts about this and sort of, I guess, YouTube in general or LeftTube.
Have you seen Cat Black's video?
Oh, no, I didn't. I hadn't watched the video yet, no.
It's not worth watching.
Savage, holy shit.
She just, like, gets drunk and starts ranting, and I think... I don't want to like say that she's not a good content creator or whatever. Yeah. I don't watch her, but yeah, it was just so disappointing because I was like, I actually had that same thought basically of like, you know, like a lot of the main figureheads of what they call LeftTube are white people. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, she actually made that video I was thinking of. And then I watched it, and it was just very disappointing. It's like 40 minutes long, or she's just, like, drinking the whole time and getting, like, more and more incoherent as it goes on. And she doesn't really answer the question, but I think the only generative point she makes is one that they quote in this article. Yeah, how, like, they're like, these white people are just like saying what people of color have always been saying, but it gets accepted once they say it, which doesn't really answer the question of why LeftTube is so white directly. It maybe has something to do with it, but this article was better than the original video. That was my initial thought. I just always get disappointed when I think back to that video and how it could have been better, but it wasn't scripted and just kind of ranty rambling. I think the really important thing to like take away is just it's kind of comes down to money at the end of the day. I think I think people are watching the channels that are like the most well polished and stuff like that, and that comes from being able to have the not only like the financial resources but also just like the time to sit down and make a video like that, which I think doesn't, you know, people don't necessarily have as much time or money to do that, and then it just becomes a vicious cycle because then those people get more Patreon supporters and then can continue to make better and better videos. And so like really I don't know if it's ultimately worth thinking too much about like how do we make YouTube more diverse as opposed to focusing our resources on just kind of like eliminating the larger systemic inequalities that lead to that in the first place.
Have we talked about, or maybe you just talked about like the white privilege unpacking the invisible knapsack like paper and just like its relevance in sort of anti-racism or racism academia?
I know I'm like vaguely familiar with it, but honestly I was surprised when they said that was the most popular one because I don't think I've ever seen that one.
I haven't read it myself, but I saw it referenced in a class I was taking last semester. They were saying that how they were comparing that piece to other pieces that like were, you know, sort of lauded as like the academic standard, but like the person writing it had not experienced what they were talking about. And so it's just like a weird, bad foundation in a way. Even if like it's well-intentioned, there's sort of something, well, ooh, Justin, is there something inherently problematic about it? Is that a word I can use that word? I'm not going to elaborate, but it feels problematic.
You're definitely walking on thin ice right now.
Is this the point? Can I make a joke about getting canceled, or am I just feeding into that bullshit narrative?
You personally can't make that joke now.
That's fair. That feels right.
I don't think I've ever seen that article. I've never read it myself. I'm not sure if I've ever seen it cited. Not that I can remember, but I mean, I think there's definitely like other books and articles about white privilege that are also pretty popular. There are ways to like track what things are like being cited the most. So I'll take this article's word for it. But I think, overall the point still sort of remains the same. I think you do generally see, I think just in general, like pretty much any progressive social movement in this country has been started or led by people of color who then retroactively get erased, whether that's gay rights and Stonewall, and that's sort of how Marsha P. Johnson, this trans person of color who throws the brick that sort of like gets the riot started. But even like back to the Revolutionary War, the first person killed in the Revolutionary War was a black person in the Boston Massacre. We don't really exactly know what he was doing before that, but it seems like every time any social movement always seems to, you can always see people of color at the forefront of it in some way.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you, Justin, just because you're right, but I'm inherently feel the need to, but I can't, so yeah. I don't know, it's just good to be aware of these things.
I think it is interesting that a lot of these people are or were in graduate school. Mm-hmm. Just because I think on one hand it sort of does beg for us to have a greater diversity of voices, people who haven't necessarily gone to grad school. But on the other hand, I do think it sort of proves that grad school does teach you research skills and argument skills that do help you to make these thoughtful types of videos. I think it relates to what I was saying a couple episodes ago about like valuing cultural studies. Like it does help their videos, but we might also want some other types of voices as well. I had one that I think was not really relevant.
Rarely is. You just keep fucking talking anyway, so I don't know why you're stopping now.
But do we ever talk about, because it mentioned Natalie Wynn leaving Twitter, and do we ever talk about that whole stupid controversy over like the transphobia stuff or whatever?
Was she being accused of being transphobic?
It was like...
People, I fucking... woke town, dude. I swear to fucking God. I hate this shit. I vaguely remember the thing with Philosophy Tube. That's just like, yeah, I want to fucking quit Twitter after hearing that shit. Like, what the fuck? Like, just the dumbest shit. Like, who's winning with your dunk?
It was too stupid for me to like dig down the rabbit hole too much, but yeah. I was like there's a non-zero chance that these are like alt-right trolls masquerading as leftists, because this just doesn't really make sense.
I know, but they just fucking eat that fucking bait up because they just want to be the fucking best one
That's
around.
True too, though.
They want the little golden star to be the good boy for the day, and I hate that shit.
I've always said there's definitely this weird battle to like who can score the most woke points, and it's like no one. That's like not what this was supposed to be about at all.
And like it's that I just like saw somebody's fucking pinned tweet was just like fucking. Ugh, that should be that's safe room worthy, dude. Fuck me.
I was about to say, yeah, how are we going to transition into a safe room? Because all of this is being cut.
This is all being cut.
Yeah, cut all that.
All right, Justin, you want to fucking transition?
Okay, so now that we're in the safe room, Alex, what do you have on your mind?
What I got in mind this week is fuck a bumper sticker. Fuck bumper stickers. I hate bumper stickers because when you buy a bumper sticker, you're just deciding you're deciding who you're gonna piss off. Like, oh, I'm gonna get this swath of people, and that makes you a bad person, firstly. Or you're bragging about something, and that also makes you a bad person. Any political bumper sticker is automatically just meant to be antagonistic, or you're trying to represent yourself as something, but then you're driving, so you're automatically going to be a prick about something, because nobody's a good driver. I already talked about this. Everybody's a bad driver. Everybody thinks they're a good driver. We both know, everybody knows where we stand politically as far as who we want for president. I got cut off by a guy with a Bernie 2020 bumper sticker like a week ago, and he just went through like 5 different fucking lanes and used a blinker once, pissed me off, and he made me so mad, because he's just ruining it for everybody. And like, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I see a Bernie 2020, I see a Bernie 2016 and get sad, but I'm like, oh, okay. But people who are like on the other side of the political spectrum feel the same way about how I feel about fucking Make America Great Again, as they probably see when they see a Bernie 2020. And it's just like, so just don't do it. And just, I don't need your little fucking clever, like, oh, I can't even think. It's just some dumb shit. Just any dumb shit. That's usually a really conservative leaning joke, but they're all bad. I hate bumper sticker jokes. Bumper sticker jokes are bad. Do you, when the person driving, like, every time they're getting gas, they go like, like, it still makes them laugh? Like, is it still funny to you after the 500th time you've seen it? Like, who gives a shit? Like, what's it for? And I don't care if your kid's a fucking honor student. I definitely don't care if you have a baby on board because you're just going to make me want to fucking crash into you anyways. Just to teach you a lesson. Don't tell me. You don't know who I am. Don't broadcast that to somebody. You know I'm fucking trying to high score I'm trying to go for today. Don't fucking tell me that. Guess what? Fuck your baby. I don't like your baby. Your baby's shitty. And I definitely don't like their parents. You got bad parents. They're going to turn into a bad kid. Just fucking cut the knot now. Let it go. Just start over. Fucking just take the whole family out, dude. Fuck that shit. Hate bumper stickers. Hate them.
Wow.
Not one good bumper sticker has ever existed. How's that for a fucking contrarian take, Justin?
I mean, I guess I don't share the same hatred of bumper stickers, but I don't really understand the point. I don't think I would ever get a bumper sticker. I think they do like sometimes give you a bumper sticker when you donate to a politician or something. Like if you, I don't know. Like sometimes they'll send me a text. So I donated to Bernie, and sometimes they'll send me a text being like, "If you donate now, then we'll send you a Bernie Sanders bumper sticker." So it's like I don't know. I guess if you get one that way, maybe. Even then, I'm still not sure. Because like you said, I'm not sure what it's.
Put it in your laptop. Call it a day. Somebody can engage.
Yeah, although the laptop ones can be a little weird too. But
laptops are annoying and weird too. But at least the person can engage you face to face if they want to. If you're being a real fucking asshole about it. But when you're driving, I'm either going to get into a $10,000 insurance accident, or I just got to like let you sit there in front of me, fucking holding up traffic, and just be like fucking, just pissing me off. Can't do anything about your fucking Keep America Great Again sticker.
Yeah, it's just strange because, like you said, you never actually see your own bumper sticker, so it's just for the people behind you. But then half of the bumper stickers anyway are just like, if you can read this, you're too close, which always gets me too, because it's like, usually I read those when we're stopped at a stoplight together. Right. Like, I'm not reading it while I'm tailgating you. I don't know. I mean, like, I'll be curious if you are tailgating someone, does that have any effect? I don't really know. My least favorite ones are definitely the "Do you follow Jesus this closely" one in that same vein. Well, why?
Well, that's the thing. Like either that, or even on the other end. Again, it's like if you're gonna ride my ass, at least pull my hair. Like I'm just gonna fucking back into you. I'm gonna rear end your ass. Like fuck off. Like it just makes me want to crash into you. Fuck. It makes me angrier, and it just pisses me off. Fuck.
Do you see the like what college people went to or whatever? Do you see those ones?
See those ones too, and I also don't give a fuck. Or high school alumni ones. Fucking.
Oh god, dude. I can't imagine getting a high school one.
Holy shit, he's still 17. Fuck me. That's also like that's just like you. So you peaked when you're 17. Like, do you really want to tell everybody that? Like, it's gonna be downhill for like 60 years. Is that really what you want to broadcast? That's what that means. If you're the best years of your life are in high school, it means literally it's never getting better. Then when you had $13 in your fucking bank account and had to go study for fucking trig, that's the best time of your life. Christ, dude, really? Whatever.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll see the ones where it'll have like 2 or even 3 colleges on it, which I guess is like the undergrad and the grad school. Maybe I'm not really sure.
That I would assume a parent.
Maybe
like multiple kids. It's still stupid. I just still don't care.
Yeah, I just can't imagine like it's not like you're just like in the checkout line, you just see a bumper sticker and you just like grab it. Like I don't really know where you'd go and get one. I'm sure they have them at like any of these big superstores, but I still feel like you have to specifically seek them out, and I just can't imagine ever specifically seeking out a bumper sticker. Like the thought like, oh, let me get a bumper sticker has never once even halfway crossed my mind.
That's because you get it, Justin. So why don't you tell me what your safe room is, bud?
So my safe room this week is on UFOs.
Okay.
And I just want to do a little PSA here.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I don't know if you know this, Alex, but
Probably not.
UFO it's actually an acronym. It's not a word. It's an acronym.
If I may, unidentified flying object.
That's correct. Yeah, it is the
Ooh.
letters U, F, and O, which means unidentified flying object. So I just want to break that down. So if you look at the first word, unidentified, it means something that's unknown, can't immediately be indexed to a database of known or named things. Then you have the next word, flying. That means that something's airborne. It's not touching the ground. It's not walking or swimming. It's in the air, flying. And then the final word, tell me if you need me to slow down here, is object, which just tells us that whatever this something is a material object, not in some dream that you had last night. Not the air itself, but an actual object that you can hold in your hands. And so if you really dig into these words, I think you'll find that actually none of them mean alien.
Okay.
None of the words mean alien. None of them even actually imply alien, or even something that's extraterrestrial. You
That's
can
true.
go back and rewind the tape. I didn't do any tricks of language. I just broke it down simply, and so I okay. So my real point here is I'm just get upset when people conflate UFOs with aliens, specifically like when people will ask you whether or not you believe in UFOs. That question always baffles me. Like, how could you not believe in UFOs? Like, unless you're telling me you've been able to identify every single light that you've ever seen in the night sky, then you've seen a UFO. I've seen plenty of UFOs in my life. Which is not to say that no one can identify them, but I mean, it's just like if you can't identify it, it's a UFO to you at least. And it's the same thing. Like even with I think UFOs have been sort of come back into prominence a little bit with those Navy videos or whatever. Everyone was like, "Oh, like remember when the Navy confirmed that those UFO videos were real? Like, shouldn't we be preparing for contact with the aliens, blah blah." It's like all that means is that the Navy couldn't identify them, which is maybe concerning, but probably just means that like it's like another government's plane that they just didn't know was in the air, or even just like some random person's drone or something that they couldn't identify on those grainy black and white videos where you can barely make out the clouds in front of you. So yeah, I mean, like saying the videos are real is not the same as saying that aliens are real, even though for some reason people take it that way. I mean, sure, I guess it could be an alien spacecraft. That's just the least likely option of anything that it could possibly be. Which is not to say that I don't believe that there are aliens somewhere out there in the universe, but I'm just a little bit more skeptical that they're on Earth and just chilling, not doing anything. Doesn't really make sense to me. But I don't know. Have you noticed this UFO alien conflation?
Yes, I've seen sort of the conflation of UFO as extraterrestrial, UFO is alien, not in the sense of just foreign, but like sci-fi. And honestly, Justin, we're both former creative writing and English majors. You always, you sort of short sell us there, but we've done our fair share of literary analysis, and honestly, I can't a little more pizzazz, somebody that has a better voice, but I can't really argue with how you broke down the meaning of UFO. So I'll give you this one. That being said, I want to come out right out the gate and say I haven't seen UFO because I know the fucking difference between a Boeing 727 and a fucking Boeing 726. So I'm not a dumbass. I know an Apache helicopter from a Black Hawk. I'm not a dumbass. I know a Pelican from a Seagull. And I know which one's which immediately. I know a crow and a raven. I'm not a dumbass. It's fine that you know. It's fine that you've seen UFOs. I have. I know every star in the sky, Justin. Child's play. I know. That being said, there are aliens, and I can readily identify them too, when and if they show up. But I get what you're saying. I agree with your premise, but practically you're incorrect when you're referring to me.
I know for a fact you don't know the difference between a crow and a raven.
Well, one's a fucking football team, dumbass. So how the fuck am I not going to know the difference?
Yeah.
Honestly, that being said, I do not know if there's a difference. There is a difference between crow and ravens, right? Those are
Yes, ravens are larger.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought the tell was, and I do know that because I've identified them. All right, that was a trick.
I mean, there is stuff to be said about
Not knowing what words mean.
well, not that, but like, I mean, there is something to be said about that. But like, I was watching this video recently about how like Area 51, like the real cover up was the government sort of letting people think there's aliens there rather than admit that they were doing like Cold War spy testing type stuff. I think that also is like where a lot of our like UFO alien conflation comes from, is just like the government is always not to this sounds like vaguely conspiratorial, but I mean it's true if you just like think about it. Like the government's much more comfortable with people, like if they're trying to do some like illegal spying on either internationally or domestically, they're way more comfortable with just having people believe that it's aliens. It's like, oh, what was that unidentified object? It's an alien, rather than like being like, oh, the CIA like secretly like divested money from this other group to like build the spy plane to like check in on the nuclear. Like, no, they're not gonna like tell you that. So I think that's like kind of where it stems from, but that's not really my concern. My concern is just people mixing up the words.
Mm-hmm. Shall we wrap?
We shall. So that is our show for this week. As always, see the show notes to get a link to view the artifacts for yourself.
Music for the podcast was produced by Nicholas Pizzuto.
Rate us 5 stars on iTunes. Follow us on Facebook. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube if the podcast is not your preferred genre. And tell a friend or enemy about the show, and join us again in 2 weeks as we find 2 new texts to discuss.
Hey, Justin, quick question, buddy.
Yeah.
When Trump said there was blood coming out of her wherever, what was he talking about? For science purposes, I'm asking.
Officially, I think he's talking about her eyes.
No.